Last but by no means least, in our series of arcade conversions, we take a look at another Mastertronic Plus re-release of a game originally released by Virgin. The game's called Silkworm. It's a scrolling shoot 'em up. So let's take a look at it. Like all the other Mastertronic Plus releases, this game has got the original artwork on the front cover there, which is pretty self-explanatory. It says Silkworm and it's got a helicopter and a tank on it, or a jeep I should say actually. And the spine says Silkworm on it in a pretty plain font. It's a $2.99 game, as you can see there. And on the back, just like all the other inlays, we've got some screenshots. You can see the helicopter taking on a bigger helicopter there, and an even bigger helicopter there, and the helicopter just kind of roaming along with a nice mountainous background on the last screenshot there. And there's no blurb about the game as such, there's just a quote from Computer and Video Games there. And inside the inlay we have got the instructions, of course, which is the usual over detailed blurb about trying to save the Earth, basically. Not really going to go through it all, but there's a full page of it there. There's another quarter of a page there, and then it's got the loading instructions and the controls, and the rest of the instructions are in foreign languages. So here we have the loading screen and some music to go with it. Quite reminiscent of the Shinobi loading screen really, in that it's just showing a big face, and if you look closely at the top there, in a rather unpleasant brown font, it does say Silkworm as well. Tune's pretty cool, and it's got a nice sort of metallic style sheen to the helmet thing, but it's a bit of a strange title screen nonetheless for a shoot 'em up that features helicopters and jeeps and so forth. So the game's loaded and here's the title screen. Pretty basic stuff, but it is quite similar to the original arcade game, which we'll take a look at in a second. Plenty of text on there, as you can see at the bottom there. It says conversions by random access, programmed by Warren Mills, graphics by Edward Langman, and the copyright there for Tecmo. And it's also another game, much like Shinobi and the racing game whose name I've forgotten, Continental Circus, both of which were done by the Sales Curve for Virgin Games. This one was also done by them. So before we start the game, let's take a look at the arcade version for comparison. So let's take a look at the conversion now and see how it compares. As you can see, there's only me here, so I've got a choice of a one-player game. I can choose from the helicopter or the jeep. I will start with the helicopter, so press fire to do that, and the game starts. Pretty similar to the arcade game. The sprites are a lot smaller, as you'd expect from the Commodore 64. Oh, and there goes a life, because they fly in from behind you, which isn't very nice. It's something of a memory test, this game, rather than any skill. As long as you remember where stuff comes from, you're usually alright. So graphics are pretty nice, colourful, similar to the arcade version, although not identical, as you'd expect. Scrolling's pretty good. So the idea of the game is you fly along, and you can collect these flashy things, or you can shoot them. If you shoot them, then it kills everything on the screen. Here's some bouncing helicopters, which I've never seen on the field of combat before. There's some guns firing from the bottom, gun turrets, there's helicopters flying around. Pretty mediocre enemies, to be perfectly honest. They all do pretty much the same sort of thing. helicopters shoot at you, nothing else does apart from the bases on the floor. So as you can see, I'm sort of flashing now. I've got a protective shield. You collect a second one or shoot it and it blows things away. You can do that pretty much most of the way through the game until you get to the end. You can also shoot the ground-based targets rather than using the downwards fire that you can see comes out of the bottom of the helicopter. It's pretty much just avoiding the enemies. You won't shoot them all because they take a couple of shots each. You can actually hold the fire button down, which gives you kind of auto fire, but it's a little bit slow. As you can see, stuff comes towards you and it becomes almost like a game of chicken. There goes another life from helicopters shooting me from behind, which is annoying. Here comes the first sort of pre-end of level boss, which is kind of a helicopter with a wobbly neck. Annoyingly, the background goes black, which means you almost can't see the bullets. It's a bit annoying, but it's pretty easy to dodge. Oh, and there goes my last life, just as the big end of level helicopter came on the screen. So let's just give that another go as a helicopter and try not to get quite so killed. No music in the game, unlike the arcade version. Just sound effects, which are your usual blasting sounds and explosions. So the real aim is to try and stay in the middle of the screen so that the things that come from behind don't kill you when they come out from behind the back of the screen. Not much else to say about the game. It's a sideways scrolling shoot 'em up. There were hundreds of them in the arcades in the late 80s and early 90s. This one's alright. It's not the best in the arcade. It's also not the best conversion. It's a pretty good version of the arcade original, but it's not very interesting. The range of enemies is a bit boring. It's too easy to get killed with it seeming a little bit unfair, and there's no power-ups to speak of until right at the end of the level, where you suddenly get the chance to pick up a double-up shot, which doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference anyway. The collision detection's a bit naff, so things can be flying right over you and they can kill you. I think I'm nearly at the end again now. So away I go, shooting stuff, kind of boring. Definitely not one of the better scrolling shoot 'em ups, although I don't know what that is, that's a tank. I've never seen them on this level before. I did enjoy it back in the arcades. Oh, I seem to have missed the mid-boss this time and gone straight to the end-level boss, which suggests it's a bit buggy as well, this conversion. Some things seem to appear that weren't there the first time around, unless that's intentional random stuff. So that's the end of the level. Still got a life or two left. So second level, backgrounds again pretty good. Oh, here's that boss from the previous level now. I don't know what he's doing here, but there you go. Just a case of wipe out the enemies. There's that double fire I was talking about, which doesn't seem to make a hell of a lot of difference either. Just try and get as far as I can in this. A little bit easier when you've got the double fire, it's more powerful. There's like a robot or something there. Again, not very interesting. Yeah, the backgrounds are rather busy. You can barely see my helicopter on this green background, for example. I'm doing quite well on this level. This is the best I've done in all my previous goes. Maybe it's just I finally found the knack of avoiding all the little bombs and stuff. Probably shouldn't speak too soon. What on earth is that? Is that something to kill? Yes, it is. Here's another one of those mid-bosses. This is probably the precursor to the second end of level boss, so let's see how I get on. These things are pretty easy to wipe out usually. There's another power up there. What have I got now? Oh, super fast fire by the looks of things now. Which again becoming useful had I not just got killed. Now I'm back to my normal weapons now, which probably means I've got no chance. There's those bouncing helicopters again. Commonly seen in all wars during the 80s. The bouncing helicopter. See deaths coming pretty imminently now. Doesn't seem to be any way to get extra lives that I've noticed. I'm starting to get thumb ache. This must be the end of level boss coming up now. Oh, it's a tank on the ground. not the most awe-inspiring end of level boss either. Not compared with something like R-Type, for example. Again, doesn't seem too difficult to negotiate. The attack pattern's pretty recognisable. Oh, I've just got killed right as I've wiped it out. That's really frustrating. And that's the end of that. So let's just have a look at it with the Jeep quickly. And the thing with the Jeep is, now in the arcade you had two buttons, one of which made it jump, one of which made it shoot. Jump in this one is up, and that really does kind of come at odds with the control, because what you're supposed to do to move the turret on the top of the Jeep is hold the fire button down. So suddenly you end up with the fire thing facing backwards, and you can't move it around in time because you've got the fire button held down. It's bloody solid with the Jeep, and why anyone would choose the Jeep, which has limited movement, compared to, there goes a life. I think the only major difference is the Jeep has more lives. I'm not even sure that's true in this. I think it is in the arcade, but basically the Jeep's rubbish. It becomes more like a platform game, like a sort of basic Mario style game, than an actual shoot 'em up with the Jeep, because you've got to avoid stuff. I'm actually doing better than I thought I would. I've never got to the end of the first level with the Jeep, so if I do it on this playthrough I'll be amazed. It's just too complicated to move it around. You can jump backwards, which is interesting. Got no protection here at all. There goes another life. Got one life left, I think. I think as a two-player game it's probably quite fun, because obviously the helicopter can take out the airborne stuff, the Jeep can take out the... There we go, dead. The Jeep can take out the ground-based stuff, but that's enough of that. Bit disappointed with it, to be honest. I seem to have fond memories of it from when I was younger. I definitely had a copy of the game on my Commodore 64 back in the late 80s, but I'm pretty disappointed with this, and it's actually a disappointing end to this run of arcade conversions. This is probably the worst of the bunch, to be fair. It's kind of boring. The graphics are pretty good. It's not a bad conversion, but as you saw from the arcade original, the original was much better. So that sums things up for this, and next up we'll be going back to the normal reviews. There are a couple more mini-series still to come, but next time around it'll be just something random from the pile of games not yet played.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.